Well, welcome back to the channel once again. I'm here for another unboxing of Victory at Sea. And so what I have here is the United States Navy starter fleet. So each of the 6 navies all have a starter box. They're all similar in contents, but not exactly the same. For example, the Kriegsmarine, the German Navy, doesn't have an aircraft carrier. They never had one in the works. For example, the Italian Navy didn't have one, but there was one planned, so they did include one. Warlord does include potential future refits that were never done, and ships that were planned but not completed, or something like that. For the U.S. Navy, I wonder if they will ever do Montana. I believe it's Montana class battleship, which was planned and never done. It was going to be bigger than the Iowa class battleships. Just have to wait and see for the future. There isn't a ton out yet for the game, but there is a good amount. These starter packs are a great value. I was a little worried when I first saw these a few months ago. They seemed a little bit pricey to me. They are retail $126 to $130 approximately. That is expensive, but you get a ton in this box. You get one of these starter fleets and you can get playing like pretty much right away. If you don't go for the 2-player starter because you want to get into a different navy, buy the starter box for the navy that you're interested in, and then round it out with the dice and the rule book, and create yourself your tokens and measuring guides, and you'll be all set to go. There's a ton in this box. Let's look at the back. So inside this box, there are going to be 8 resin model ships. USS New Mexico, which is a battleship. We're going to get the USS Essex, which is an aircraft carrier. Then the Houston, the Chester, and the Portland, which I believe are all cruisers, and 3 Clemson class destroyers. In addition, we're going to get 4 Corsair Flights, so we're going to get our first planes in this. There aren't a lot of planes available yet for the game, but all 6 of the starter fleets, including the Germans, do include planes. So it's going to be your one source for planes at the moment. A couple of the navies, I believe, just had a plane pack or a flight pack released. The US and the Japanese Navy, not quite yet. But then we also get our ship cards and our damage sliders. Not a lot else interesting. It is lead free. I assume that they have to do that because of the metal parts that go on the ships. So let's get into this box and see what we have. I'm not going to struggle too much with getting it open. So why don't we look at the models first. So these are going to be our Corsair Flights and our Clemson class destroyers. So you see these ships, these starter packs tend to have a mix of the different types of resin. Looks like Alicia packed this for us, so thank you very much to Alicia. So these are going to be our Clemson class destroyers. We'll try and focus in on those. So this is an option. Instead of running your Fletcher destroyers, this is another option for destroyers. You do see that this is the lesser quality resin, and you see that there's lots of flash. There's going to be a significant amount of cleanup for these before I can get to painting and washing them, but the detail is just fine. These are smaller ships, so obviously with a really tiny ship like this, your detail is going to be somewhat limited. So we get 3 of those. And our Corsairs. I'm excited because these are the first planes that I've had in the game, and our planes were packaged by Ray. Thank you, Ray. So again, these are going to require some cleanup, but these are the bases. It says Corsair on it, so you're going to be able to see that. I believe the F and the B is whether you take a fighter version or a bomber version. These rings will go on top, and you will be able to designate fighter or bomber with them. But there's going to be a significant amount of cleanup before I can put these together. Then there's the Corsair Flights. Pretty tiny airplanes, just representative of the real planes. Again, only so much detail that you can put into these. There you go. Important part of the game. So I'm in reading and learning more about the game. The flights are going to be very important, especially when you're going against the destroyers. These destroyers can cause immense amounts of damage for they punch above their weight. Let's put it that way. Alright, so let's get into this pack. This is going to be our Portland, Chester, and Houston cruisers. And these were also packaged by Alicia. Okay, so you can see the difference in the color of the resin. This lighter resin is a much higher quality resin, although you will see it when I bring these up. There is a small amount of flash that you still have to clean up, but not nearly as much. So let's get some close-ups of these. Okay, so this is a Portland class cruiser. I believe this is the same as the Indianapolis, which we got in the 2-player starter. You can see there's a fair amount of flash here. Not significant amount, but stuff that we'll have to clean up. But I believe this is the same class as the Indianapolis. So this will be our second Portland class cruiser. Then we have the Houston. The Houston is a Northampton class cruiser, so we already have 2 of those. This is our 3rd Northampton class cruiser, and I believe the other one is also, so we're going to have 4 different named Northampton cruisers. As this is also a Northampton cruiser, if you can make that out there, and this is going to be the Uss Chester. So it's essentially the same ship as the Houston. So now, when you consider this the 2-player starter, we would have 6 Fletchers, 3 Chesters for destroyers, 2 different Portland class cruisers, and 4 different Northampton class cruisers. And then we'll get into the large ships. So this is the Essex and the New Mexico. So much larger pieces of resin. The aircraft carrier here is huge. The base would be the same, it looks like, or at least very close to the Missouri or the Yamato. Extremely large and relatively heavy piece of resin. Again, flash that we're going to have to clean up. Nothing unexpected though. And then we have the New Mexico. So this is going to be a better starting battleship for us, as opposed to the Missouri. A little bit more reasonably sized to learn the game. Lots of detail in there, lifeboats, a lot of secondary guns, AA guns. Very nice. So this is the far superior resin to what we got with the destroyers here. And then finally we have our metal bits. So I will take some of these out and show you. I'm not going to get too much into every single one of these. These were also packed by Alicia. These always have a good amount of flash that you're going to have to deal with. So this is going to be the Essex for the aircraft carrier. So you get the great big bridge and some additional pieces. And let's find the New Mexico. So here's the New Mexico. In New Mexico, some bigger guns, bridges, other towers. And these clean up and attach to the models very easily. Okay, so we have gone through that. Let's get into the paper. Okay, so we get our assembly guide. So the New Mexico, the Portland, and the Essex on one side, then the Chester, the Houston, and the Destroyer on the back. You don't get instructions for assembling the plane stands for whatever reason. You can see the destroyers are going to be pretty easy to assemble, just have to put the bridge on. Fair amount of other pieces for our other ships. It actually seems like the New Mexico is a little bit easier than our cruisers. Interestingly, I don't see, so we have our damage sliders. I don't see our care for resin insert, which isn't a big deal for me. I know how to do it, but they almost always include the care for resin, and we don't have that. But it's not important. Unless this is your first purchase and you don't really know how to deal with the resin. I'm sure there's resources online in order to learn how to do that. But here are our ship cards. I am going to zoom in so that we can get a better feel for our ship cards. Right, so we have our New Mexico class battleship. Now, for the New Mexico, there is an expansion for the Idaho, which is the same New Mexico class battleship. It's just a different named battleship. So if you're interested in getting expansions, just know that if you want different things, that the Idaho is going to be the same model, and except for the name on the side of the ship, it's going to be essentially the same statistics. I will probably get the Idaho eventually, but it will be further down on the list just because I know I already have a version of that ship. So 395 points. Battleship, flank speed of 4, so it's a relatively slow ship. Armor of 6 plus, which is good. The hull of 72 and 24 before it becomes critically damaged. Aircraft 4, armored deck, torpedo belt 2. So a little bit better against torpedoes, but not significantly better against them. We have 4 big 14-inch guns. We have an A, which is going to be your front, B, which is the second one in the front. Then you have your X and your Y, which are the 2 on the rear. Ranges of 9, 18, 27, and 37 for point blank, short, long, and extreme. They each throw 3 attack dice. They do have a +2 to against armor, which is good, and they do throw 3 additional damage dice. So while the ranges are different, they do similar amounts of damage to the guns on the Missouri. And they don't have the heavy trait, which the Missouri did. So that actually makes them a little bit more useful because they will be able to target smaller, faster ships at closer ranges. The light guns, they've got 12 5-inch guns, ranges of 4, 8, 12, and 16. They throw 6 attack dice, a -2 to armor. They don't do very well against armor, and 1 damage dice per attack dice that succeeds. They are restricted, so we can only throw half of the dice out of the port and the starboard, and they're weak, so they can't cause critical hits. And then we have another 8 5-inch guns, slightly different ranges, so 3, 7, 11, and 15, so slightly shorter ranges, but they still throw the 6 attack dice, a -2 to armor, 1 to damage dice. These ones are dual purpose, so these guns can be used against aircraft, also restricted and weak. AA battery, local 1. And on the back, we have our refits. The Idaho, the Mississippi, and the New Mexico were the 3 ships in the class. Real-life statistics. And just remember, when you take a refit, you have to take all of the prior refits for that ship. So if you're going to take the 45 Idaho, you're going to have to take the 43 and 42 Idahos and account for those points when you're building lists. And we have the Portland class cruiser. These are going to be pretty much the same as what we got in the 2-player starter, 140 points. 6 for flank speed, armor of 3, hull of 26 and 8, aircraft 4, 3 large guns, a light gun. I'm not going to go into all the detail on these because we've seen them before. The light guns is 8 5-inchers, and then AA battery of local 1. Our Essex class carrier, so this is a new ship for us. It's 270 points, so carriers don't cost a tremendous amount, um, but they're also, they can't do as much damage themselves as other ships. I will get into more rules about carriers at a later time. Um, this does have some rules here. So the light guns, the 8 5-inchers, only 3 attack dice may be fired into the front and aft arcs. So that is, if you're shooting off the front or the rear, you're going to not use the same statistics down here. And the light guns, only 1 attack dice may be fired into the front and aft arcs. No attack dice may be fired into the starboard arc. Right, so I'm gonna have to read about that a little bit. I think the starboard arc is going to be the arc. So just trying to figure out the front and the rear. It appears that this would be the front, so that this would be the port and this would be the starboard. So this is where the tower is going to be. So we'll have to clarify that at a future time. Flank speed of 6, armor of 3, hull is 70 and 23. The traits, it has advanced radar, it's a carrier, somewhat obviously, torpedo belt 3, and the aircraft is 22 flights. So that means you can have up to 22 flights, so like the Corsairs here. We can have up to 22 flights. And there are all kinds of rules in terms of how many flights can start the game in the air, how many you can either launch or retrieve in any given turn. But the flights come included in the point cost. So the points for the Corsairs, if we take them, are included in the point cost for the carrier. So we don't have to pay an additional point cost for the flights. But the flights do have traits like not all flights can be launched by carriers. So some flights that you'll be getting in the game in the future can't go in the carrier, so they can't be included in the cost of the carrier. But if you include them in the cost of the carrier, you have to follow the rules for launching and retrieving them with the carrier. If you want to use them as a land-based airplane, you can do that, but you're going to have to pay a cost for each individual flight. And this is pretty lightly armored. We've got some light guns, some 5-inch, so 8 5-inchers and 4 5-inchers. Ranges, they're dual purpose and weak. The AA battery, we have some ranges on that, and local 3, so they're pretty decent against other airplanes coming in, which would be thematic. These ships aren't going to be able to deal with other large ships themselves, and if they're getting into close range with other ships, you've probably done something wrong in the game. These ships are not intended to be brawling with other ships. They should be off on the side, way off in a corner of the map, or there are even some rules for some scenarios where these can be placed off of the map and launch their airplanes from off the map. And then lots of different ships in this class. Lots of these were built, and then all the different refits. The Northamptons, we've seen those before, 130 points. We have the statistics. 3 larger guns. They're not super big guns, but they're okay. Got our light guns with dual purpose, restricted and weak, and our AA battery of local 1. I'm not going to go over those too much because we've already seen those in the starter. Then this is our Clemson class destroyer, the last ship. This is our small one. So this is a different destroyer than what you get in the 2-player starter. These cost 60 points, which I believe is slightly more than the Fletcher, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Flank speed of 7, which is always good. Makes them much harder to hit. Armor of 1. These are always lightly armored. The hull is 3 and 1, so it's only going to take 3 damage to sink one of these. So you might think, why are you going to take a bunch of these? Well, these can, again, punch above their weight, and destroyers, and because of their speed, they get all kinds of benefit in terms of being able to avoid hits and damage. So it has some light guns, which are weak. The light guns throw 2 attack dice, -2 to armor, and 1 damage dice for each attack dice that would hit. The AA battery is local 1, but then it has its torpedoes. It has 2 port side torpedoes and 2 starboard side torpedoes. And those torpedoes are devastating in one-shots, so once you fire your torpedoes with these, they're done. Destroyers in general want to get in close, because especially the really big battleships can't train their big guns on these. So these guys want to get in fast, get their torpedo shots off as close as they possibly can, and then get out if they can. They're not sitting around waiting to get hit. And then the back of this card, so lots of ships in the class. They give a few of the names, but there's over 150 more. It's an older destroyer, commissioned in 1919. Some of the history, and then some of the refits. Now, because there's 150 or more of these, they give you some of the names. You're probably not going to take 150 of these in a game. You're going to take 3. If there's another way to get these eventually, then maybe you'll take more than 3. I don't think too many people are going to buy multiples of the starter packs, because you're just getting the same named ships that you had before. But if there are ways to get extra destroyers, you might run a couple more. But you're going to have to just be careful, make sure that if you take a refit, you're going to take all of the refits that came before it as well. And then there's 3 of those, and that's it. So get our New Mexico and our Essex in. So I'm extremely excited for this. I feel like I am now ready to get some real games in. I'm going to start probably without the carrier. I will start and I will use the New Mexico as my battleship, and some cruisers and destroyers, and start that way. And then after I'm comfortable with all of those rules, I will add in the carrier and the flights. Still no submarines. The submarine pack, I find it's a little bit tough for me. I will get it eventually. It seems a touch expensive for what you get in the box, which is why I haven't gotten it yet, but I will get it eventually, especially if I can get it for a little bit cheaper than regular retail, but we'll see on that. I am very excited for the Essex. There are a couple of other expansions for the U.S. Navy that I also don't have. There's at least another carrier, and there's the Idaho class battleship. So be looking for those unboxings at some point in the future as well. But thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this was useful to you. Please give a thumbs up and subscribe if you're interested in Victory at Sea. We'll be doing some more unboxings very shortly, and painting up our ships and getting some test games in. And I do hope to do some battle reports, even if it's just me playing both sides. Do some quick battle reports, some learn how to play videos, and hopefully develop some interest there. Thank you very much. Keep on playing. have fun, and we'll see you next time.